The Ministry of Education has announced that schools across the nation will reopen to face-to-face interaction for students in the upper secondary level and those in technical and vocational institutions.
Schools shall reopen for face-to-face engagement for the cohort of students in grades 10, 11, and 12. That is formerly known as 4th, 5th, and 6th forms, and for all practical instruction centers and technical vocational educational centers from the 9th day of November 2020.
With no clear direction from the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, on the way forward for Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, and Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE, for 2021, the decision was made at the cabinet level following a wide range of consultations and preparations.
Between August and September, we had embarked collaboratively with the Guyana Teachers Union to determine across the country what needed to be done at each school to make them ready for safe teaching. Based on that data, we've either finished or are in the process of finishing installing sinks in all schools, making sure toilets work, and that we have determined that there is adequate ventilation and have assessed the capacity to stay appropriately distanced vis-a-vis the numbers in each school. Schools have been cleaned and weeded, and we have procured masks and face shields and sanitizing products and vitamin support for teachers and for our students who are to return care packages. Thermometers will be provided to all schools. Adequate signage and information has also been acquired and will be widely available and conspicuously posted. Over the last weeks, we at the Ministry of Education met and consulted with the Ministry of Health, medical professionals, the Caribbean Examination Council, head teachers, the Guyana Teachers Union, parents, students, and other stakeholders, discussing and considering all relevant issues so as to decide on the way forward for the delivery of the curriculum in the Christmas term and going forward. From teachers, parents, and students, we learned of their deep worry that exam students were not being engaged adequately in a way that would allow them to be prepared for examinations they are most likely to sit in 2021. So worried are students that we have received alarming numbers of requests from students to repeat the year they feel they will lose if we continue to stay out of school. So worried were teachers that many have already returned to the classroom for face-to-face teaching at all levels, in all parts of Guyana. From CXC, we learned that the body had not yet decided when the exam would be and what form it would take, but last week an advertisement was published that invited students to get registered for the May-June sitting of the exams.
Going back to the classroom, teachers will be allowed to use varying methods of teaching based on each school's unique situation. In addition to this, the Ministry of Education will be providing guidance to schools.
You may recall that we had said in those early announcements that once we begin face-to-face schooling, we may have to adjust our school term, and we may have an extended school week, and we may have to do rotations of students and teachers. This holds true. Each school and institution will have the freedom to set its own timetable to get teaching done effectively, and may do what is necessary to effectively deliver the education needed once they comply with the gazetted COVID-19 order. The Central Ministry will provide direct guidance on the completion of SVA and syllabi once requested, or if its supervisory arms observe the need. Textbooks, past papers, digital support, and other materials will be provided so that each student has access to necessary resources. Content will begin from where it was left off for each student. This may necessitate reteaching what was already taught during these months of closure for those students who did not access said teaching during said school closure. A wellness diagnostic will be administered to our students and support offered where necessary. Our school's welfare department is fully mobilized to address needs as they arrive, and we intend to make sure we lose not one single child to this school closure.
Teachers at the other levels will also be mobilized to assist CSEC and CAPE teachers with education delivery and to ensure smaller classroom sizes and social distancing. Support will also be provided for teachers with younger children who are called out.
Accommodation can be made by schools to cater for teachers who have younger children at home who will not be returning out back to school just yet. We know this is a real concern and believe that schools can create space for those younger children and provide the supervision.
With regards to transportation, assistance will be provided for students based on the ministry's capacity, as the Education Minister noted that some vehicles were found to be inoperable.
Unfortunately, the buses that were in the system, more than 50%, I'd be happy to send you the report, are not working. This is not my report. This is reports we got from around the region upon request. Some of them can be repaired and are being repaired, and some of them, they say it's totally useless to attempt to repair it. So those, where buses exist, we will of course be using them.
A rigid campaign is also in place to ensure that all precautions are in place for vehicles transporting students, following a recent multi-stakeholder meeting.
Present at the meeting was the Guyana Police Force, the Deputy Traffic Chief. We also had the President of the Guyana Minibus Union. We had persons from the Consumer Affairs organization coming out of the Ministry of Tourism. And so we recognize the importance of collaboration, and that is why we had all those stakeholders in the meeting. Before the meeting closed, we had the commitment by all of the bodies as to what will be their specific roles going forward. For example, the police talked about how they will monitor the bus parks to ensure that students are not left there linemen, as we would want to say, that the busmen are orderly, that the touts will not be tugging and pulling children and determining which bus to go in. And so the police said that they will have a presence, a heavy presence, going forward in that process. Of course, the Consumer Affairs team, they said all of the information that we have in terms of educating our students, educating the general populace, they're willing to use every platform possible to have that kind of information disseminated to the public. And so, of course, the Minibus Union, the president, Mr. Andrews, he actually gave us a booklet, and he's asked us if we could reproduce that booklet and get that booklet into schools so they could do some teaching, training. And so the meeting was very progressive. Persons talked about providing the buses with sanitizing materials, and even with thermometers. We heard that person said that they will do that coming out of that group. So we recognize that the security of our children is paramount, and therefore it cannot be a Ministry of Education thing alone. Oh, we also said that we'll have bumper stickers. The police said that they will allow us. It's not really, it should not happen, but they said because of these times, and we're living in difficult times, we will have bumper stickers on buses like sanitize your hands, wash your hands, and so on. So information will be all over the place in terms of cleanliness. Of course, buses will have to be cleaned and so on. If a bus is not deemed fit by the police, it will not be allowed to carry children.
Measures are also in place to ensure that students housed at dorms have adequate facilities. As the term progresses, the ministry will be making adjustments to the protocols based on health and stakeholder consultations.